Welcome back to another episode of Limitless MD. I'm your host, Vikram Raya, and today my guest is Risa Groux. She's a functional nutritionist and certified autoimmune coach. She has a private practice in Newport Beach, California, and she literally is taking care of people from the biggest loser to famous golfers to CEOs, but she also takes care of everyday people such as physicians, and she's going to bring all the myths out there about, hey, I'm healthy, my labs are okay, but really there's something missing. And we're going to talk about maybe, the four hidden labs that your doctor's not checking, that if you did, you'd actually find out the root cause of maybe the low energy or the problems with the lack of sleep. And as a bonus, she's going to talk to me about the people in your 40s who cannot lose the last 5 to 10 pounds. What's up with that? We're going to get into all of that and more. So Risa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
What if you could reclaim hours of free time each week, create legacy building wealth, and devote more energy to your passion projects without giving up on your career as a life-saving MD? My name is Vikram Raya, functional cardiologist, high performance coach, and real estate expert. And I'm here to give you the tools, strategies, and solutions you need to transform your life so you can unlock your limitless potential and achieve greatness, all the while freeing up your precious time. Welcome to Limitless MD. Let's dive in. I want to get into the meat of the matter, but could you briefly tell us how you sort of fell into all the stuff you're doing? Because this is not what a typical nutritionist does.
Right. So I've always had a passion for nutrition my whole life. And, when I grew up, my mom was always on a diet, and there were fattening foods and, she's always trying to lose the same 5-10 pounds. And my grandmother too. And everybody around me, there were these foods that were fattening and not good. And I was like, what is the deal with that? Right. So I got very passionate about food and its connection to health. And years later, I opened up my practice and became a nutritionist, a holistic nutritionist. And I realized that I was giving pretty much everybody the same diet. And I realized, why do some people thrive with this diet type and other people's don't? So I got into functional nutrition and I learned how to read labs. And, I always say I'm not really good at playing darts in the dark without the lights on. I cannot see the target. I'm going to start guessing. Everybody's going to get a little annoyed. So I need the data. And that's when I really dove into functional nutrition. And I order a comprehensive lab for everybody. And I order a comprehensive stool test for everybody. That's where we start. Sometimes we don't even need to add any more tests, but sometimes we do. And we find out the root causes, right? So the four pillars of what I do is I look for root causes because I know it's not a deficiency in medication, right? And then I look at prevention because in allopathic conventional medicine, we cannot treat somebody until we're already in a disease state. So I try to do prevention. The third thing is the pillar I work on is the body is one whole interconnective unit. So it all speaks to each other. We have to consider the whole body, not different appendages, organs, or glands. They all are in communication with the whole system. And the fourth thing, as I mentioned, is data. I really need data. And I work with two foundational issues. One is systemic inflammation, because we know that is the driver of disease. Right. So we have to find out, are we in a state of systemic inflammation? Do we have a massive fire going on in the basement? And the other thing I look at is gut health, because gut health is pretty much, where it starts, where it stems, what your homeostasis is, where you can thrive and survive, or where you can really hinder yourself.
So Risa, I love that you gave us, the four main causes, which is the four main pillars of your thought process: root cause, prevention, the body as a whole system, and the data. And being data driven, sometimes people think holistic means, it's just airy fairy, but no, it's actually, we're much more data driven. As my background's in functional medicine, functional cardiology. I love the data because the data helps drive decisions. And so the joke we have, regarding inflammation is this: traditional medicine, when you have a house and there's a fire going on, the traditional medicine approach is, hey, let's somehow figure out how to turn off the smoke alarm, and we're waving our kitchen towel at the smoke alarm and trying to quiet it down so it doesn't cause problems. But at functional medicine, we're like, dude, where's the fire? Let's go get the fire hydrant and go take out the fire, right?
And let's not give it a squirt gun, right?
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
let's give you a squirt gun, see if that works.
Yeah.
We need the fire hose. We need the
Yeah.
fire department.
Yeah. And the second thing is, Hippocrates, the father of medicine, says, all disease begins in the gut, right? So I know in the green room, you told me this remarkable story about how all of this could tie together in one story. So tell me the story of the famous golfer, Freddie Couples.
Yeah, I love this story. It's actually in my book. Great guy, called me up. A physician actually called me and said, hey, listen, he needs to lose 20 pounds before the Masters. I'm like, no problem. We can take care of the 20 pounds. But so he came into my office and he sat down and I said, well, tell me what's going on. Cause he's very famous and everybody knows that he has this massive back pain. He travels with his physical therapist. He's constantly going to doctors. And so he goes, oh, it's just horrible. So I said, well, tell me the story. So he starts to go through everything and he does this, the doctor, this. I go, well, where's the surgeries? He goes, oh, I've never had surgery. And I go, so it may not be necessarily all structural. There may be some inflammation. Has anybody ever tested you for inflammation? He said, not that I'm aware of. I said, I'm going to order some tests. He goes, do what you need to. All the tests come back and he is just massively on fire. He's just very, very inflamed. And remember, he lives on 2 golf courses, right? His 2 homes are on golf courses. So he's breathing in these chemicals all day, all night. Yeah. He works on golf courses. So he's just in a constant flow. He had smell sensitivity. If he got into an Uber, he'd have to cover his nose because he'd get headaches. He got headaches frequently. He just was in not great health. He wasn't an optimal elite athletic health. So in the meantime, I put him on my detox right when he came in. And I said to him, Freddie, what is your number? 10 meaning that you're extraordinary pain every day. Where are you? 1 being you're not in pain at all. He said, I'm a 7 to an 8 every single day.
Wow.
So I put him on my detox. He came in the next week and he said, I'm at a 4. And then every week thereafter, he's been a 0 or a 1. Every time I see him, I go, Freddie, what's your number? And he's like 0 or 1. And yes, there's some structural component to this because he's swinging that golf club, but there was so much inflammation that every doctor missed. And he was just managing that inflammation and nobody ever gave him a fire hose. So we did that and he's had no back pain at all. No, the headaches went away, the smell sensitivity, everything. We cleaned out his liver, everything. And he was thriving. Yes, he lost those 20 pounds and he did amazing at the Masters, but right. But we got him out of back pain.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, on this same topic, I think it's a perfect segue. Let's talk about, look, a lot of my friends are physicians. A lot of the people here listening are physicians. Physicians are very smart. They're very good and they follow a certain protocol. So you go to a doctor, they'll check your CBC, they'll check your CMP. They get some lipids on you. Maybe they'll do a little bit of thyroid testing, but if all of that comes back and it's all normal and a person, in their 30s, 40s, 50s is still not normal, what is it that perhaps you check that sometimes reveals the hidden truth?
Yeah. So I look a little bit deeper, a little bit more thorough, and I do work with a lot of physicians. I'm working with a surgeon right now. I work with a lot of doctors and they're great at what they do. But I think our paradigm in medical school is that we don't really teach how to read blood work to what we really, really, really need. We're sort of catering to the insurance companies, right? So the things that I go direct to the lab, so I don't work through the insurance companies, but I order a C-peptide for every single person I work with.
Tell us more about that.
Most stable marker for insulin. So I'm looking at fasting insulin to see how much insulin is actually in the body at the time of testing. So that's a fasting number, it can move a little bit, but C-peptide tells us if you're insulin resistant. When you're insulin resistant and those receptors are hindered, they're broken off of the cell, how can we create ATP? Right? We can't drive it into the cell. So we're parking it in fat tissues and fat storage, right? So that's a really big, and it's a precursor to prediabetes. So I always look for that. The other thing that I always test for that I don't typically see on labs coming in from a conventional doctor is homocysteine. And homocysteine is an inflammatory marker, and it has to do with methylation. So I test every patient for MTHFR, which is the gene mutation that's super common. The statistic is that 50 to 90% of the population has it, but I test everybody and I see tons of people. And I would say it's 90 to 95% of the people typically have it. And it's when, you have to see which allele you have, if you have the B12 or the folate. And that person needs a B vitamin in methylcobalamin form so that they can absorb it, they can methylize it. And we typically see the homocysteine come down. But if you have MTHFR, we typically see the homocysteine up. We also see the MCB elevated. So those are methylation markers. But homocysteine, I just had a new patient last week that actually had a heart attack recently, and he's been on statins for over 25 years. And I don't think his homocysteine was ever tested, but it was at 15, which is extraordinarily high. And we like it 7 for brain health, 6 for heart health. And he wasn't really tested, but his cholesterol was as low as you can go, right?
Yes, and then tell us, one of the other markers I used to test when I was practicing full time as a integrative cardiologist and functional cardiologist was CRP. Tell us your experience with CRP and why that's so important.
So CRP is really it's our greatest inflammation marker, and it really usually has to do with cardiovascular health, but it can, if you're very inflamed, be increased if you have systemic inflammation. So CRP and homocysteine are the 2 inflammatory markers that I test every single person for. So it's really important to find out how inflamed you are.
And I know that thyroid is becoming more and more prevalent, and I don't think it's something we're genetically inclined to. It's something that probably develops. We acquire thyroid disease, and it's due to probably lifestyle predominantly. Tell us why checking just a TSH is not enough.
Yeah. So you're right. Thyroid is increasing, and unfortunately, and a third of autoimmunity is genetics, but a big part of it is also leaky gut. So that's again why I'm always focusing on the gut. And so many people do have leaky gut, and we create these antibodies, and the antibodies are trying to find a place to park. So they find a gland, a tissue, an organ to park itself. And so in this case, they'll park itself in the thyroid. So Hashimoto is very common. So TSH is what the pituitary is creating, right? The pituitary is telling the body to light, like if we're going to light a fire, that's what I call the kindling, right? We go through the liver. That's why I'm really big about detoxing the liver, and we create T4. T4s are inactive thyroid hormone. It's 93% of that equation. So that's the wood. So we have kindling and we have wood. And typically allopathic medicine will test for TSH and T4, maybe free or total, bound or unbound. And that doesn't tell us if you're making that conversion. So that conversion is so important, where we cleave off one atom of iodine and we take that T4 and we convert it into T3. That's our active thyroid hormone. So if I tell you how many people walk into my office, they don't feel well, they're constipated, they have fatigue, they have hair thinning, nails are brittle, they have some anxiety, they're cold extremities, and they can't lose weight. Right? They can gain weight, no problem, but they can't lose weight. Well, I'm always going, what's your free T3? So we look at their labs. It's never tested or rarely tested. So I always test for a free T3. That is the star of the show. That's your available active thyroid hormone. That's only 7% of the equation. So it's really important information. So sometimes the system's supposed to work that the pituitary will signal if we're low, if we can't start a fire, if there's no match, we're going to start producing more TSH. And a lot of times that's the case. That's why we look at TSH. So if it's out of lab range, then we know something's low. But if I told you how many times I look at labs and they're low free T3 and their TSH is totally normal, that doesn't give us a good indicator. When we're taking medication, some kind of synthetic or desiccated thyroid, we're going to see the TSH go down. It should, because the pituitary doesn't need to create that kindling. So I look at reverse T3, which is huge, especially in today's world. We're so stressed. That's when cortisol, or it could be some systemic inflammation, is going to pull from that hormone, right? And then we're looking at T3 uptake to see if your hormones are actually competing for the thyroid.
So, Risa, since you mentioned stress, let's just get right into it. The people who listen to this podcast, they're high performers, they're entrepreneurs, they're physicians, they're highly successful. And with that success, they push their bodies quite hard. Yep. So I expect, adrenals are stressed and overtaxed. Tell me about the CEOs, the athletes, the doctors that you work with. How do you address their overall sympathetic tone, their adrenals, and this whole pushing their bodies to the max? And what's the strategy there?
Right. So cortisol, we know, is produced from our adrenal glands. Those are stress modulators, right? So if somebody is not sleeping, if they can't fall asleep, it's typically cortisol. If they're waking up in the middle of the night, it's either cortisol or blood sugar, could be hormones, could be liver detoxification. But I look to see what the symptoms are. So if they present as somebody with cortisol issues, they can't sleep long term, those kinds of things, they have anxiety, I'm going to give them B vitamins for sure. When we are stressed, we eat all of our B vitamins in our intestinal lining, right? We need B6 it's a precursor to making our own digestive enzymes. We need B for RNA, DNA, methylation, all that. So B vitamins is something I would absolutely give to somebody who has a lot of cortisol. If they're on high speed every day, that's what they need. In addition, I give support. My adrenal reboot is a good support, but things that balance out cortisol naturally is exercise, not particularly at night, but during the day. And Epsom salt baths are really high in magnesium, and that will balance out cortisol naturally. Also meditation, laughing, unplugging, just some joy in their life. Obviously, we can get high cortisol from a lot of stress from eating bad food, right? So the doctor I'm working with right now, I mean, you guys know you're getting fed every day at the hospital, right? And what are you getting fed? Not really good, clean food, right? But it shows up, right? And all the baskets of cookies and, so on and so forth. So, this guy is now making his own lunch and bringing it to the hospital every day because he can't get really good, clean health food. So that can be a stress on your body. The toxic overload is a stress on the body. So it could be environmental. It can be, anything, relationship. It could be food and toxic, stress. So anything like that, I would absolutely, I use phosphatidylserine at night for those people and just rub it on my feet or rub it on their feet. I mean, I don't, but they do. And it lowers cortisol so that you can sleep.
That's awesome. And I want to let the listeners to know, not only is she's a functional nutritionist and she's worked with so many, amazing people in her life, but she's even worked with folks for extreme weight loss, including The Biggest Loser. So tell me about, some of the people listening to this podcast right now. They're in their 40s and they got that last 10 to 15 pounds that they cannot lose no matter what, or if it goes, it comes right back. Give me the 5 reasons or the 5 strategies that you have for those folks.
Yeah. So I firmly believe that weight loss is a side effect of wellness. So again, I'm looking at the root cause. Why is it that you can't lose weight? Why is it that you can't keep the weight off, right? There's 5 major reasons why we do not lose weight or why we gain weight. One is blood sugar dysregulation, which we talked about a bit. The second is thyroid dysregulation, which we did address as well, and cortisol, right? There it is again. The 4th reason is sex hormone imbalance. If you have an imbalance in your sex hormones, if you do not have enough DHEA, it's going to be very difficult for you to lose weight. And the 5th reason is toxic overload. So I'm a big fan of detoxifying the body regularly. And I would recommend getting to the root cause. So many people come to me and they say, I eat really, really healthy, but they're eating processed yogurts or they're eating low fat, or they're eating grains, so we got to count the carbs essentially. And I'm not a big counter of anything. I believe that if we eat real food, our body knows what it needs and when to stop. But if you're really struggling with those last 5 or 10, people don't realize it, but look at the ingredients and look at the carbs. How many carbs are you having in a day? We are inundated with carbs. And then of course we have some beverages in the evenings that are just, all sugar. So it's not helping the situation either.
That's awesome. And you know what? Most people, if I talk to a gym owner or a trainer, they're not going to talk about hormones, right? All these things as the first 4 you mentioned were hormones, and then the final one is toxic overload. They're going to say, hey, you're not getting your heart rate high enough. You just need to eat more protein,
right,
and things like that. So I love how you really, when you stopped going surface and you went deeper. And I guess as a bonus, let's talk about, I'm an athlete, I'm about to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, Risa. I do a lot of things. What's my next strategy what's like, all right, I have done some of this stuff. I've gone through detox. I've done intermittent fasting. My hormones appear to be okay. What's next level? What do you think athletic uh, people can take from you in terms of supplements, boosting our immune system naturally? Maybe it's how do we play it at a higher level? How do we become limitless?
Yeah, I love that question. That's great. So I would say it's not a one size fits all for anybody. So I would have to see what your blood work showed and what your stool test showed. So if you've got bacteria, if you've got H. pylori, are you not making your own digestive enzymes enough? Your pancreatic enzymes? Are you inflamed? Are you leaking? Do you have a leaky gut? So I would have to know which holes are left in the boat. If we don't really have many holes left in the boat, I would just say, focus on eating real food without any chemicals and toxins. It's very hard. Unfortunately, this is a new number, but the FDA just recently approved 86,000 chemicals for us to use. Well over 3,000 we're eating. And, the EU just banned 1,600 chemicals for their cosmetic manufacturers. The US banned 11. So we are highly toxic, and it lives in our body. So I just decrease that toxic load. I would recommend always. And when we eat out, restaurants, I don't care how nice they are, they typically have they're using bad inflammatory oils like canola oil. And a lot of times I'll go places and I do, teach, do cooking classes somewhere, or I'll be in a restaurant. I always ask what the oils are, and they'll say, oh, it's a blend. And that blend is like, a fraction of olive oil, which doesn't even have a high smoke point. So it becomes inflammatory anyway when you're heating it. But it's predominantly either soybean oil or vegetable oil or canola oil, some kind of rancid oil that is going to jack up your inflammation. So that's a really hidden thing to watch out for. I'm actually working with somebody right now who has rheumatoid arthritis, and we got her down pretty much with no pain at all, which was just amazing. And then she was having a little bit. We realized that she's using olive oil when she's cooking. She took it out and it's gone. So those are really hidden sources of inflammation. And then that balance that we talked about, instead of having the foot on the gas pedal all the time, we have to take a break, right? We got to get out into the sunshine. We got to, put our feet in the sand or in the grass or wherever it is, and just unplug from the phone, the computer, the television, all that. We're just not made to do that. So that would take you to the next level.
That's awesome. So, guys, while I have Risa here, I'm going to issue you guys a challenge here. So let's make every Saturday a digital detox day. See if you can take off your Apple Watch, your phones, your AirPods, biohacking rings, and just don't have technology for at least start with an hour, then make it a half a day, and then eventually a day. So Saturday can be your digital detox. And if you want a real detox, Risa, how can they get to know more about you, your practice, and how do they get to work with you?
Yeah. So I work with people all over the world, and I am located in Newport Beach, but I do it via Zoom, and they can go onto my website at Risa Groux Nutrition. It's RISA GROUX nutrition.com. I have my book there, Food Frame. I have my detox, which I'm offering your listeners 10% off the detox.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, and it's a great detox. I mean, people use it as a weight loss program a lot, but it isn't about that. You will lose weight. Guys tend to lose a ton of weight, and what women lose weight as well. But you're just going to feel good because you're getting those toxins out. It's not a starvation program. You're having 2 collagen shakes a day, and then you're eating real food, animal protein, vegetables, sweet potato, yams, and good fats. So you feel good, you're thriving. And so I'm a big fan of collagen. I'm collagen bars, chocolate collagen bars. Anyway, all of that is there. I'm on Instagram and TikTok now, and Pinterest and Facebook at Risa Groux Nutrition. But what I want to say is that my book, Food Frame, it's really important. It was the methodology that I created because when I first started, as I was mentioning, everybody was on the same diet type. And I realized we should be now eating for our health status, what our current health status is. So if you have blood sugar dysregulation, I'm going to recommend keto or paleo for you. If you don't have a gallbladder, if you have steatocrit that's high, your GGT is high on your labs, you've got sludgy bile, you cannot digest fats, keto would not be for you. But, then I talk about low FODMAP for people who have IBS and IBD and SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. And then I talk about low lectin, which is the protective coating around germs or seeds or brands that are in life. So it's hard to break down and it can cause inflammation. I cover the autoimmune protocol as well and vegetarian diet. So everybody's going to fit pretty much in one of those diet types. And all these books that come out that say, oh, this is how we should be eating are great. And they're great for lots of people, but not everybody. So we should definitely be eating for our current health status.
Risa, I love the customization. I love the passion you speak with, and I can see like this is not it's not a job. This is your mission on earth. Sounds like so. Thank you for taking care of all those folks all over the world. I know my listeners are going to definitely jump in and be part of your universe and ecosystem. So guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Limitless MD. And Risa, thank you for sharing all your knowledge and wisdom. And guys, until next time, be phenomenal. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Limitless MD. If you found value from this episode, I encourage you to share this episode with a friend and let me know by leaving a review. For more information, make sure you check out the links in the show notes below or simply visit vikramraya.com. So until next time, my friends, be phenomenal.